I do declare that the Sabres playoff race is now dead.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Sabres fall in what was the biggest game of the season, biggest game in 11 years, and the last gasp for the Buffalo Sabres to make the playoffs. 2-1 at the hands of the Florida Panthers. We will recap it all here on the Locked On Sabres podcast here today. Also, a very interesting goalie conversation. It won't be all doom and gloom because Devon Levi allowed Sabre fans to not entirely be stuck in doom and gloom on this gloomy Wednesday, I must say, actually. Very rainy and thunderstormy here in Buffalo. So a lot to get to on today's show. As always, you can follow us on the socials. I'm at Sneaky Joe Sports. To get involved with the podcast account, best way to do that is either at Locked On Sabres on Twitter or in the comment section on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search Locked On Sabres. You can find us there. And on any of our videos, you can comment. And we will, if it's good, it's a good question or a good comment, we will read them here on the show. And a lot of the comments yesterday are about leading into the game. So I don't think I'm going to do one more check here, actually, real quick on what's, anything worth mentioning. Here we go. This is from Ethan. Ethan says, I would not be shocked if they flip Middlestat and slide Savoy in with Kulich and Greenway as line 3. And you can maybe make a case to put Krebs on the wing, get some solid fourth liners to swap for Okposo and Gergetsons. You literally can roll 4 lines with scoring potential. I like Ethan's thought process there. I just for my own mental sanity, I did create a Sabre lineup for night 1 of next season just to make myself feel better about the future. And you should feel good about the future, but I just needed to see it on paper. So Ethan's not too far off of what I had. I actually had Middlestat centering the third line with Matthew Savoy and Jiri Kulich. A kid line that also includes Middlestat. Middlestat will be 25 next year, so I'm not sure you can qualify him anymore. But Middlestat, Savoy, and Kulich. The top 2 lines, by the way, exactly how they've been. And then the fourth line, I do have Kyle Okposo and Zemgus Girgensons leaving for a fourth line that would now consist of Peyton Krebs, Tyson Jost, and Jordan Greenway. Fourth line, checking line, defensive line, whatever you want to call it. That would be the other checking line. And that's my forward group. I mean, Okposo out, Kulich and Savoy in. It's kind of simplistic, but I think that's it's an interesting way for the youngest team in hockey to get even younger, amazingly. They would be that team I put together, average age of like 23. I'll get to the goalie part of that roster I put up, by the way, in segment 2 of today's show when we talk about Devon Levi. But more on the game. 2-1. It is a very frustrating way for the season to end, the playoff race to end. And if you're wondering why I'm just declaring it dead, I had a caller on WGR Wednesday morning say, how the hell could you possibly declare the season over? There's 6 games left, and they're 6 points out, but they have 2 games in hand. You win them both, you're 2 points out. I get it, but they're under 1% to make the playoffs. I can't realistically get there with under 1%. In an election, if you're under 1%, you don't even get on the debate stage. You're on the other debate that airs like 3 hours before the real debate. So 1%, if they won out 6-0, you would still need a lot of help from either 2 of the 3, the Islanders, the Penguins, and the Panthers. I don't think you're going to get the help from the Panthers. I think they're too good. I think they're too good. That's part of yesterday as to why I'm not that mad about it. Sad and, deflated about that result. But I'll be honest with you. I think Florida is the more worthy playoff team. Now, I did not say the Islanders are or the Penguins are. So I still do believe today, if I did power rankings, I would have the Sabres in the top 8. But Florida is a more deserving playoff team than the Sabres are. They're 4th in the league in expected goals for. They are a consistent offensive power like the Sabres, but they are more reliable on defense. They're not great on defense, but they're much more reliable than the Sabres. Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour up top have been an incredible duo. Forsling's been a good defenseman for them this season, and they've got more reliable goaltending, even with Spencer Knight away from the team and Bobrovsky being a little helter-skelter. It's far better than what the Sabres have. So I think the Panthers are just a more well-matured team. They're ready for this. I mean, the Sabres last night had 9 players in the lineup that were 23 years old or younger. Florida had 1. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just Florida's in a different place in their timeline. They're actually falling short of expectations by a wide margin. They're supposed to be a cup contender this year. They won the President's Trophy last season, and they made a big splash move in the offseason, traded away picks, traded away important players to get Matthew Tkachuk, who's been incredible for them, scored last night, of course, on that deflection goal. But they're not meeting expectations, but they're supposed to be this good. They're supposed to be better than the Sabres. Sabres might be better next year when they're a little bit more fully formed. They're not ready for it yet. That's where I'm at. It's not that bad that they missed and that they lost this game. It's the most frustrating part of it is the Sabres' fatal flaw all year has been they can't keep the puck out of their own net. They can't get saves. And here was a game where they did that. Levi, is the number one guy to blame or to credit for that. 32 saves on 34 shots. So Levi was incredible, and you couldn't get him 2 goals. They did score 1 that was called back on offside. Of course, Alex Tuck. By the way, I'm not Mr. Anti-replay guy. If it's offside, it's offside. It's supposed to be a no goal, then call it no goal. Just be quicker to it. The NHL is painfully slow. And that one to me was clear. It was close, but clear. Those are 2 different things. So 2-1, frustrating result. The way it happened, the end of the game, I mean, they were right there, and we'll get into the final sequence in a second. I do want to mention, though, off the top here, some of the stats, and if you look at ice time and whatnot throughout the night, Tyson Jost buried in the lineup. He only plays 7 minutes and 30 seconds of ice time, in part because he took 2 penalties in the first period. He saw a lot of the bench, was benched in the third period, as a couple guys were. Also, interestingly, the third pair for the Sabres got benched. Riley Stillman only played 7 minutes and 55 seconds in this game. Ilya Lyubushkin only played 10 minutes and 54 seconds. And they were the best 2 players on the night, Corsi-wise, for the Sabres. So, interesting decision there. Meanwhile, Dahlin played 25 minutes and 42 seconds. I did hit my shots bet for Dahlin yesterday. I had 2.5 and he hit 5. I also hit the plus 1.5. So nice night betting for me and sneaky good bets, but you'd obviously trade that for a Sabre result. Sabres played well. They amazingly didn't feel like this. They amazingly had the highest expected goals for in a single game that they've had all year. In this game, that they scored 1 goal, higher than when they scored 9 against Columbus or when they scored 6 against LA, or I'm sure there was an 8 somewhere in there and a 7 in there somewhere. They scored so many goals in so many games, and this was their number 1 game in terms of expected goals. Alex Lyon played incredible. 3rd string goaltender of the Panthers. He's won now 4 in a row. And what a game. 39 saves, 40 shots. He was saved 4 goals above expected in this game. I mean, the Sabres got goalied. Sucks. They got goalied in this one by Alex Lyon. What a figure. I mean, he's the new Matt Reed. Matt Reed 11 years ago today actually, scored a goal to beat the Sabres and knock them out of playoff contention. Alex Lyon 11 years later is the guy that knocks them out. I will say, though, he did look shaky at times. That goal Dylan Cousins scored, he should have saved that. It's a wrist shot from the top of the faceoff circle. And he got lucky. 3rd period, Kyle Okposo's behind the net, and he goes to swing around for a wraparound backhand goal. And Lyon's in the back of his net. He's way back. I mean, he's given up the whole goal line. And Okposo, if he's just a little closer to the post with the puck, it's going to go in for what would have been a terrible goal by Lyon. So they had opportunities. They were right there. Thompson fans on it late on the power play. Tuck had a couple plays where he fanned on it. Middlestat had 3 or 4 opportunities to tie the game that he wasn't able to cash in on. So they were right there. A lot of those expected goals, I would bet, came in the 3rd period. They really turned it on late. And speaking of late, the final sequence, you gotta have a better play than Rasmus Dahlin, who, yes, Norris caliber defenseman, arguably the best player on the team. I would say best player in the team. You gotta have a better play than Dahlin on a one-timer with no traffic in front. I don't care where the one-timer's from. Dahlin's shot is his weakness. It's much better than it's been. And you know what? For a defenseman, it's pretty good. But it's not a goal scorer's shot. He is not Olofsson. He is not Thompson. He is not Tuck, Skinner. There are not a dozen, but there are a half dozen guys on this team that I would trust more with a one-timer in that spot than I would Rasmus Dahlin. It's just more, that's more about coaching, I guess, and drawing up a play. I'd rather have Thompson take the shot from the point there through traffic. Dahlin from that angle, yeah, he could have scored it. And with 10 seconds left, maybe I'm nitpicking and that, he could have passed it off and they would have never got a shot. But man, I would have hoped that there was something better they could have drew up there for it being a 6-on-3. It was only 12 seconds, but they had a 6-on-3. Gotta something else. I don't know. I wanted something else. I don't have a good answer for what I would have wanted instead. Olofsson, honestly, it's funny. I can't really say Olofsson because I've been banging the drum for Olofsson to be a healthy scratch, and here he was, a healthy scratch, and I'm about to spit out of my mouth now that I wish Olofsson was available to be in that spot, to be able to hit that one-timer. Because on the right side like that, who's your best left shot one-timer? It's Victor Olofsson. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, a little inconsistent, I guess, the last couple of days. I would still trade him in the offseason, but maybe Matthew Savoy can take over for that. Or Jiri Kulich. Savoy's the right shot. Jiri Kulich maybe could be that one-timer next year. Jack Quinn. Maybe no, Jack Quinn. I don't remember. Anyways, tough one. Deflating in the playoff drought. Assuming they don't win out and get some help, which I guess could happen, but very unlikely. The playoff drought will now hit 12 seasons, and they will come into a tie with the New York Jets for the longest playoff drought in sports, with the Sacramento Kings headed to the postseason in the NBA. Time out here, and when we come back, the bright side of Tuesday night's game. Devon Levi was unbelievable. What it means for the rest of the year and what it means for the start of next year. I think it's a very interesting conversation to have. So we'll get into all of that coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. When you're drafting your fantasy team, you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match you with must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/locked-on to start hiring right now. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on, Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everybody. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Devon Levi, unreal in his second start for the Buffalo Sabres. It was 34 shots, saves, by the way, on 36 shots on goal. Levi was tremendous, and he made a bunch of saves to keep the Sabres in it, including a highlight reel breakaway save on Matthew Tkachuk in the waning minutes. He, in the second period, had another cross-ice save where he dove across, I think with the blocker, where he actually got number 9 on SportsCenter Top 10. We've now seen 2 games of Devon Levi, and he's not yet allowed a goal where he's just gotten beat. He's allowed 4 goals, and all 4 are a little fluky, right? Like last night, it's off the post, off the back of his arm, and into the net. And the other one is a deflection from right in front. So neither goal you can blame on him at any point. Levi's yet to just get beat, and he had a lot of chances to get beat. There's Eric Stahl. flying down point blank with a wrist shot, and just he flashes the blocker. The Kachuk had a couple of other opportunities. Reinhardt had a couple opportunities where they were in close, and Levi either flashed the pad or flashed the glove. He was poised again. He was technically sound again. He was athletic and quick again. 2 games in, they've looked largely the same. He looks unbelievable. The Sabres play a high event style, so a lot of chances against him. And the only goals that have gone in on him were fluky. It's incredible. And he's beating all the hype. And I do want to point out that for next season, it's not all what he does in these few games. I think part of the equation of whether or not he's here, and even more so, whether or not he's the starter, the 1A, is what he's done building up to this point in time where he has made his NHL debut. Devon Levi at every level has been dominant. Every level. We've yet to see him struggle anywhere. Now, I made this point in contrast to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen recently, where I said Luukkonen has not really done anything to show you that he is a goaltender worthy of being in the NHL. Because Luukkonen, in comparison, he's struggled really at every level. He got drafted because of his raw ability and his being 6'5" and all the athleticism that he possesses. Let's look at Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen at his recent stops, shall we? Luukkonen in the NHL, an 897 save percentage, struggles a lot. AHL level, 895 save percentage, struggles a lot. The what else do you want for this? How about the World Juniors, 908 save percentage? All right, pretty good, but not great. Not great by any means. How about the U18s? The IIHF U18s, he played 9 games there, a 904 save percentage. Not that great. How about the U18s in Finland, the U18 Finnish league that he played in? 31 games played, 901 save percentage. Okay. What else? How about Liga in just the number 1 Finnish league? 14 games played, 905 save percentage. Mestis, I don't actually know what that is, but it's got a Finnish flag next to it on Elite Prospects. 909 save percentage in 24 games. That is like 6 different levels of hockey where Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has never had a 910 save percentage anywhere. Levi, meanwhile, let's look at his stops. CCHL for Devon Levi, 37 games played, a 941 save percentage. NCAA, a 942 save percentage in 66 games. The NHL level, a 942 save percentage. I know only in 2 games. How about at the World Juniors and the U20, a 964 save percentage, and one of the best goalies we've ever seen at the tournament. The U19 tournament that he played in 6 games, a 917 save percentage. I mean, he's been dominant everywhere. Every level he's gone to. So I might expect that to continue. It could continue. I think he'll hit some turbulence in a rookie season where he's with the Sabres the whole year. It's an unfair ask to expect him not to at the highest level. But I think he's earning the job. And now the question, if that continues and he plays whatever it is, 3 or 4 more games for the Sabres and he starts the year next year, I more and more his name's in pencil. If I'm doing the lineup opening night next year, right now, I've got Devon Levi written in pencil. He's one of the 2 goaltenders. What I then have to decide is who's my other goaltender? Who pairs with Levi if he is indeed here and he bypasses Rochester just because he doesn't need it? And by the way, I think Levi could play maybe World Championships. He'll be ineligible for the AHL playoffs. I think he would have already had to play there. But I could see World Championships for Levi playing for Team Canada. The Sabres might want that. Let him continue to show that he's ready for the NHL. The Worlds are not the NHL, but it's NHL caliber talent all over the place. It's part of the reason why we all knew Owen Power would be ready right away because he played for Team Canada at the Worlds. Levi, who pairs with him, though, is the big question if he is here. And I just can't get there on Luukkonen. I can't get there on 2 unproven netminders being paired together when it's a playoff or bust season. And that will be it. That'll make it weird and interesting on what they do for Luukkonen. Luukkonen, at the start of next season, he will need waivers to go up or down. So they're going to have to make a call on him, whether or not that's going to be he's an NHL goaltender, he's one of the 2, we're going to put him with Levi, or we're going to trade him. And all honesty, I do like the second option. It's not I don't need to give up on Luukkonen. I just don't really think he fits the timeline for what the Sabres are looking for in goal. Levi is very rapidly here taking over his spot as the young guy in the NHL level. So who do you pair with the young guy? It's not another young guy typically, especially when you're trying to win right away. So my ideal outcome might be Levi starts the season in the NHL next year, and they find a team. I will go back to Thatcher Demko. I'm going to work to try to find a different example than Thatcher Demko because I go to him as my go-to all the time, and I never mention another name. But just for example, Thatcher Demko in Vancouver. The Canucks work because they're a team that's hitting the reset button, and Demko wants out and he's 27. He's about to be 28 years old. They're looking to clear cap space. He makes $5 million for the next 3 years. And you could get Vancouver on the phone and say, listen, we know that you're going to move on from Demko, but you also need some option in the future. You would like to have a guy to help, develop. You want to develop a guy into your future number one. Here you go. 23 years old. They might need some seasoning still, but you're not winning anything next year anyway. So give him the games, let him get his reps. And you know what? Maybe in 2-3 years at 25 years old, which by the way is when a lot of goalies end up showing up at the NHL level in the first place, you might be your number one. You could sell them on he's the next Linus Ullmark. Linus Ullmark wasn't even in the NHL at this point. He struggled in his first year, went down to the AHL for 2 years, and then, oh, look, 25. He's finally in the NHL. Luukkonen's got 2 more years till that point. So that and you get Demko back. You flip your goalie value from young, potential, unproven to more stable, more solidified, get a little bit more money probably. But that to me is a better option than Luukkonen to pair with Devon Levi, Demko or a Demko-like player. And the other example I'll make that I've made before on the show is the Boston example. The Bruins did this. Jeremy Swayman is the best comparable you'll find in the league for Devon Levi, in all honesty. He was a low round pick. He was a 4th round pick of the Boston Bruins. He had an incredible college hockey career. He, at a young age, 21 for him, he showed up and he played 10 games at the end of his season for the Bruins. And in those 10 games, he had a 945 save percentage and went 7-3. Very similar numbers to what Levi's done in 2. So what did the Bruins do? After 10 games, the Bruins said, all right, we're going to put you in the NHL the next season. We know you're young. We know it's a quick timeline usually for goalies, but we'll put you in the NHL. But what the Bruins did was not sit on their hands and say, well, we got this other goalie prospect, Daniel Vladar, who was higher drafted than Swayman was. He was the 3rd round pick of the Bruins. And he was 23 years old at the time, the exact same age that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is. And he had played, a similar amount of games that Luukkonen had at the time. He had played, what was it? Actually, he did play fewer games. He was only at 5 games played for the Bruins, but he was ready to make the jump to the NHL level, and everybody knew he was ready to make the jump to the NHL level. So what did the Bruins do? Instead of going with 2 unproven guys, they traded the lesser of the 2, and they brought in a more stable, more proven, above average starting goaltender in Linus Ullmark. And I don't need Thatcher Demko or a guy the Sabres would bring in to be the Vezina winner like Ullmark is, but I need them to be what Ullmark was, which again is a above average starting goalie in the NHL to pair with my young guy who, if he takes over the net, great. And last year that actually kind of happened. Swayman started 41 games, exactly half, and Ullmark split the net with him. This year even, Ullmark's been incredible, but Swayman has split the net with him. That, to me, is not a scenario to run from. It's a scenario to run towards. Pair him with a more established guy. That, to me, right now is the dream scenario. Night 1 next year is Levi and a more established veteran. Not Jonathan Quick, by the way. Stop tweeting me about Jonathan Quick. Jonathan Quick stinks. Jonathan Quick, real quick, on Jonathan Quick. Stop thinking about him. In the last 5 years in the NHL, there have been 66 goaltenders that have played more than 82 games. A full season's worth of NHL hockey. 66 goaltenders. You want to know where Jonathan Quick ranks in save percentage? 65th. Martin Jones is the only goalie in hockey that's worse than him in the last 5 years. No Jonathan Quick. No chance. No thank you. I don't want any part of it. But other ideas, we'll get to them as the offseason approaches. Quick timeout. When we come back, what to watch for the rest of the way. In fact, kind of an Amerks update. I think the Amerks are something to really watch for the rest of the way. So we'll give you a little update on Rochester. And I got a couple questions actually at Locked On Sabres about whether Jiri Kulich and Isak Rosen could play for the Sabres this year. I do think they could. And that would mean them going up and then going back. I'll explain next, though, here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are almost here. 3 games left for a lot of these teams. And it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That is bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. And then you can bet on everything: money lines, point scores, over-unders, threes drained, anytime goal scorers in the NHL. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. If you parlayed last night, I had Sabres plus 1.5 against the Panthers, and I had what's the other one I had? I had Rasmus Dahlin over 2.5 shots. I did not get the Paterka goal, so actually you would have lost if you did all 3. But if you did those 2, you would have won a lot. FanDuel Sportsbook. Don't miss out their no sweat first bet up to $1,000 back in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Okay, what to watch for the rest of the way? Of course, Devon Levi. I hope he plays again tomorrow night in Detroit. What else to watch for? Start paying attention to the Amerks a little bit. The Amerks are fun. They're good. The Amerks this season, in fact, their record speaks for itself. It is 33-25-5. They're actually exactly an even goal differential, though, which is funny. Rochester has a 9-point lead on the playoffs. It's a very weird, finicky system the AHL has. It would take me 50 minutes to explain what the AHL system is, but essentially, the top 5 in the North Division where the Amerks reside get in, and right now they are 9 points ahead of 6th, the Belleville Senators. So they're going to make the playoffs. Now they also could earn a first round bye. So if that happens, what they need for that to happen, they need to gain 1 point on either the Utica Comets, who are tied with the Amerks in points but have the tiebreaker, or they're 1 point behind Syracuse. They would have to jump Syracuse by 1 point. So the Amerks could earn themselves a way into the second round without even playing a first-round series. The first round, by the way, is a 3-game series. Second round's a 5-game series. Here's where I'm at, though. With all that being said, those are important. And the guys I'm thinking of most notably are Jiri Kulich and Isak Rosen. Those 2 you need to play, obviously, need to have play in the AHL playoffs. They have been good for them all year. They have helped them get to this point, and they should be down there. But here is another thing. The Sabres finish their regular season before the Amerks playoffs begin. The Amerks have 16 games left, and the Sabres have 6. So what my thought would be, and I hope the Sabres do this, maybe they wait till they're mathematically eliminated, so you only get this for 2 or 3 games. Final couple games of the season, call up Jiri Kulich. Call up Isak Rosen. They've done this in the past with a lot of guys. Alex Nylander's used to happen with every year because he would always be in Rochester stinking it up. Kulich and Rosen playing for the Sabres by the end of the year. I'd like to see that, especially Kulich. He's the one I'm thinking more about, okay, this guy's going to be ready for next season. I'm penciling him into my lineups for next year. Rosen, maybe. That might be a little bit of a longer shot. He probably needs another year to cook down in Rochester. But let's see. Let's see how close he is. Let's see how close Kulich is. So another thing to watch for the rest of the way. Not only those 2 playing in the AHL playoffs. Amerks playoffs will be fun whenever they come. 2, those 2 coming up and playing a couple games for the Sabres. I'm not 100% sure it's going to happen, but I feel like we are tracking towards that if the Sabres get eliminated before the end of the year, mathematically. All right. No more in the hunt. It's frustrating. They got the Pittsburgh result, too. The Sabres got the Penguins to lose to the Devils, and playoffs are over. They could have been there. They could have been 2 points behind Florida, 3 points behind the Penguins, and 4 points behind the Islanders with 2 games in hand on all 3. It was that close. That close. But alas, we will look for other things going forward. Next year, of course, anything else to watch for in these remaining games? Hey, again, if they win out, they got a shot. So still be rooting for them to win. We're not in Bedard watch by any means. Thanks, everybody, for listening to today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast. We'll talk more about Sabres and Red Wings tomorrow on tomorrow's show. So come back for that. And more Amerks updates as we progress here, as they will play meaningful games, even though the Sabres might not. Now go make your next listen. Locked On Game to Game. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.